Right. Good. Sorry about that. New system here. Good afternoon. Sorry for the delay. We had a long closed session, and we're all familiarizing ourselves with the new consoles here. We have some new technology. Hope everybody had a great July. Welcome back to City Council. Great to see you all back. We're going to start with the roll call, please, Tony.
Jimenez,
Present.
Torres,
Present.
Cohen,
Here.
Ortiz,
Present.
Davis, Dwan,
Present.
Candelas,
Present.
Foley,
Here.
Batra,
Present.
Kamei, Mahan.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Tony. Great. We're on to the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today's invocation will be given by Father Andrew Nguyen of Holy Family Parish, and Councilmember Dwan will tell us more.
Thank you, Mayor. For today's invocation, I welcome Father Andrew Vu Nguyen to the City Hall. Father Andrew was born in Saigon, Vietnam. He was part of the first wave of the refugee who left Vietnam by boat and have been a resident of San Jose for the last 30-plus years. He received his bachelor's degree in science in field of management of information system. He left his engineering career at Compact Computers and Solid Data System after 5 years and joined St. Patrick Seminary, where he was ordained a priest on May 23, 2009. He was assigned to Holy Spirit Parish and Our Lady of Lavang, formerly known as St. Patrick's Church, as parochial vicar. On March 23, 2015, Bishop Patrick McGrath appointed Father Andrew as the 16th pastor of the Holy Family's Church. Please join me to welcome Father Andrew for invocation today.
Dear Honorable Mayor Matt Mahan, all the respected council members, and everyone. Again, Father Andrew, and I'm no stranger to the City Hall. Actually, when I was a San Jose State student, I was an intern for City of San Jose in the IT department working for planning and building department. And so it's 26 years ago, so everything is new as it was over there. Anyways, as we come today, obviously I realize that I'm not perfect. No one is perfect. Our nation is not perfect. But then what makes our country different from others is that because from the beginning of our founding country, the founding fathers and mothers have placed and entrusted our nation under God. That's why we say that, we keep saying that this nation is under God, in God we trust, and God bless America. And for that, each and every one of us, we perhaps, even though we may have different faith, but we all came from one Creator. And so for me as Catholic Christian, I came to believe that the Creator is named Jesus. And so for that, you may call our Creator with a different name, but we all came from one Creator. And so allow me to pray invoking the names of Jesus as our Lord and Creator. And so for that, let us pray. Merciful and loving Lord, on this blessed day, we come before you with hearts full of gratitude and hope, seeking your divine guidance and blessings for our Honorable Mayor, Matt Mahan, and all the respected council members. As they take on the responsibility of leading our city, we ask that you grant them the wisdom to make decisions that uplift and empower our community. May they be inspired by a vision of unity, progress, and prosperity for all citizens. We pray that you install in them a spirit of compassion and empathy, that they may listen with open hearts to the diverse voices and needs of the people they serve. May they govern with fairness and justice, ensuring equal opportunities and representation of every member of our city. As challenges arise, may they find strength and courage to overcome obstacles and turn adversity into opportunities for growth. May they lead with integrity, unwavering dedication, always placing the common good above personal interest. May their actions be guided by a deep sense of stewardship for our environment and resources, preserving the beauty of our city for future generations to enjoy. We pray for our homeless brothers and sisters, those who wander without shelter, longing for warmth and security and a sense of belonging. May you be their guiding light, offering comfort in times of despair. Give the strength and resilience to endure their hardships, and help us as a community to extend our hand in support and solidarity. May our city's leaders work tirelessly to create affordable housing options, social programs, and opportunities for employment, providing a pathway to a brighter future for those experiencing homelessness. May our mayor and council members be beacons of hope, spreading positivity and optimism throughout our city. May the leadership be a shining example of collaboration and unity, fostering a sense of belonging and purpose among our citizens. We entrust them into your loving hands, dear Lord, knowing that with your guidance, they will lead our city to new heights of prosperity, harmony, and collective well-being. In your divine presence, we offer this invocation, humbly seeking your blessings for our mayor and our council members. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. And so thank you so much, everyone. It's such an honor for me and a blessing for me to be here to pray with you and for you. May God bless us all. Take care.
Thank you, Father. Appreciate you being here to help open our meeting. We're on to ceremonial items. Councilor Jimenez, if you would join me at the podium, we will recognize our city forest.
Good afternoon. If we can get everyone from our city forest, if you want to come down now, I know sometimes you wait till the end, but I think it'd be good to have you down as I sort of highlight all the wonderful stuff you've been doing. We'll give them a second. So I'm honored today to give a commendation to our city forest. I suspect many of you know about this organization, but I'm actually going to read off some information that actually I didn't know. So thank you so much for enlightening me as I go through this and read some of this. So our city forest was created under the direction of the San Jose City Council in 1994 to be the city's urban forestry nonprofit partner with the sole mission of cultivating a more sustainable city by engaging people from all walks of life in growing, maintaining, and appreciating the city's trees. Our city forest has developed many award-winning programs that have installed and established 100,000 shade trees and shrubs. 100,000, that is a lot. Achieved a 97% tree survival rate and replaced 277,000 square feet of lawn with drought-tolerant shrubs to save 8.5 million gallons of water. They also provided one-year paid internships to over 550 low-income young adults and mobilized and coached more than 150,000 community volunteers. Our city's forest has also advocated for San Jose's low-income and highest-need neighborhoods since its founding, securing non-city funding to provide free trees and services. They have provided free trees to 250 schools and to over 30 city parks and facilities. Suffice it to say, no matter where you go in the city, you're going to see a tree that was planted by this wonderful organization. And also, in case you didn't know, it's just one of 2 nonprofits in the nation to win the Senator Harkin Community Service Award in Washington, D.C. Our city forest remains a dedicated partner to the city and continues being a strong partner to each council district as we strive to increase the tree canopy around our districts and across the city. Our city forest is combating climate change, improving our environment, and as their motto goes, changing our city one tree at a time. And for this reason, join me in giving them a big round of applause today as we express our appreciation for all the work that they've done around our city. And I'll be calling up their esteemed leader that has been leading the organization for just a few years to say a few words. Rhonda Berry.
Thank you so much, council member.
You got heels, but I can put it down. Let me see. There you go.
I don't know why. Thank you so much, council member Jimenez. This is such an honor for us. It's an honor for all of our thousands of volunteers that he mentioned that have helped us over all of these years. It wouldn't be possible without them or our incredible Job Corps members and my incredible staff. Actually, many of our core members graduated last week, but we still have some here, and along with my staff. I did want to just say that, the last 30 years, over that time, urban forestry hasn't really been a budget priority. You can imagine it. I think now it's sexier, maybe, to plant trees. There's more awareness around it. And that's why I'm so grateful to this city council. This council has made the urban forest a priority. And they have allocated an unprecedented amount of funding to actual programs like ours for our mission. And so we're hoping at some point we'll actually see some of that funding, because we're very, very eager to do more with what we have and to kind of get back to where we were. The last 8 years have been really, really rough. And now that urban forestry is kind of all that, we really want to be part of that excitement. But again, our partnership with the city has been wonderful. We've had wonderful results, and I just believe that the city's investment has gotten a terrific return, and it's given an opportunity for so many residents to increase their capacity to plant and care for trees and to become environmental stewards. And that's really, in the end of the day, what we're looking to have happen. So thank you.
And one critical thing I forgot to say is, Mayor Mahan, can you please give her the commendation? Should have did that at the beginning. Yeah, thank you. So let's give them another round of applause, and we're going to take a photo, please.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Jimenez, for recognizing one of our wonderful local nonprofits. We are on to orders of the day. Does anyone on the council have any changes to the printed agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the closed session report. Nora?
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have a report out of closed session today.
Thank you. Okay, next is the consent calendar. I believe Councilmember Foley is planning to pull 2.10, is that correct? 2.10?
That's correct.
Okay, anyone else want to pull anything from consent?
Is
I
that
do,
for,
Mayor.
is
Okay.
I would like to make sure that my memo is included in the 10.11D, 10.1D.
Let me, we're on consent? Which item?
Is 10.1D.
Oh, this
These
is just
and
the
data.
regular, not land use consent, just regular consent
regular
at the top
consent,
of the
sorry.
agenda. We'll come to that later in the meeting. Okay, so
is item 2.10 being pulled for comment or a separate
I
vote?
believe just comment.
Okay.
Great, and then Councilmember Batra, I saw your hand up.
2.2,
And 2.2, okay, for comment or a separate action?
the, the Title IV of the San Jose Municipal Code to extend the term of the Measure E real estate, real property transfer tax refund pilot program for one
This is
additional.
final adoption of ordinances. You want to pull 2.2 from the consent calendar?
Yeah, it is in the 2.2B. Would just like to,
Oh, this already passed. This is a second reading.
I just want to get a comment on it.
Okay,
Not
great.
getting
All
it
right, so we'll go to Councilor Foley first to comment on 2.10, and then we'll come back to you to comment on 2.2. Councilor Foley?
Trying to figure out this new system. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to say a few words about this item 2.10. On August 24th through the 27th, we're proud to welcome the U.S. Gymnastics Championships to the city of San Jose. We will be welcoming some of the world's best gymnasts just down the street from City Hall at the SAP Center in their hopes to represent Team USA at the 2024 Paris Olympics. On the men's side, you'll be able to see San Josean Tyler Turner and Gilroy's Nola Matthews for the women. Notably, you will all be able to watch gold 2020 all-around gold medalist Suni Lee and witness Simone Biles, who recently made a return to competitive gymnastics, winning her first competition just this weekend after a 2-year break. I'm excited to be co-hosting a U.S. Gymnastics welcome reception with San Jose Sports Authority later this month, where we will host Mayor Mahan, my fellow city council members, USA Gymnastics officials, representatives from SAP Center, and others to kick off the competition in San Jose. We're extremely thankful for our partnership with SJSA as they continue to bring these large, that would be the Sports Authority, these large sporting events to our city. Good luck to all the athletes, and go Team USA. Thank you.
very good.
Thank you, Council Member. Looking forward to that. Councilor Batra, you want to comment on 2.2?
Mayor, I wanted a comment from the, already did. No, I just wanted to have the comment on that item 2.2B from the city manager.
Your microphone's going on and off.
Sorry, my mic keeps getting cut off. I don't think the city manager had a report on that item. This was on consent. Did you have a question for the city manager?
I wanted the city manager to just explain in a comment what it is.
So
Okay.
I'm happy to do that.
Go ahead.
So
Absolutely.
this is for Measure E, the pilot program. So this extends it another year, and it allows qualifying nonprofit organizations to apply for a refund for the sale of property under Measure E.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I don't see any other hands, so can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Great, thank you.
Blair Beekman,
I'm sorry?
public comment.
And public, yeah, this new system's really throwing us. Sorry, let's go to public comment before we vote. Thank you, Tony.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Welcome back from summer break. Always a little disorganized coming back. I hope there could be public comment for all consent calendar items at this time. For myself, I wanted to speak on items 2.1 and 2.14. 2.14 is about celebrating a flag raising ceremony for Indian Independence Day. I think that's a really interesting idea. Thank you. Indian independence is a really, really interesting story that I think if we respect Gandhi ideas of peace and nonviolence is how to address issues, it creates a way of thinking that's really interesting to develop our future practices as a society. I'm certainly basing the work I'm doing with future tech accountability on these sort of ideas and principles that Martin Luther King tried to emulate and use as well, very well. So good luck in how to consider peace and nonviolence as practices and as thought. as how to consider issues. It does something really interesting to your mind and how to consider things. And so good luck in those efforts. And with my remaining time on item 2.1, there's the June 21st approval of a city council meeting. There's about 8 items on the community and housing concerns, item 8. 7 of those are around affordable housing issues. One is quick build issues, one is home key issues. There is, you currently offered on August 7th a notice that people who live around the City Hall area in encampments have to vacate today. That's only a 24-hour notice. A woman has have to work really hard to get her stuff together. Home First team is trying to work with her. I hope you can look into this matter and offer her help. Give her a few extra days because you guys are so quick about this so she can work out something. They're trying.
Back to council.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Let's vote on the consent calendar.
2.14.
Sorry, we're voting at, do you have it on your screen?
I want to make a comment on 2.14 before we vote.
I think we voted, I'm sorry. Oh, right, it wasn't pulled, that item wasn't pulled. Anyway, you can't comment on it, sorry.
Public made a comment on that one, and
Councilmember, we're voting, it wasn't pulled from consent, we're moving forward, I apologize. This is out of order, we're gonna have to keep going forward here. Tony, have we used the voting system correctly here? Has everyone voted?
Yes, I was just waiting on one last vote. So the display, I don't know if you guys can see the display, so I'll read it out loud. We have all unanimous. I'm sorry, it's hard to read it from down here. The vote was unanimous for consent calendar with Davis absent.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tony. We're on to item 3.1, report of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have a report today.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. On to item 3.3. This is our summer intergovernmental relations report. I believe we have a roughly 10-minute staff presentation. And we'll jump in as soon as folks are in the box and settled.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. My name is Sarah Sarate. I'm the Director of the Office of Administration, Policy, and Intergovernmental Relations. I'm joined today by the Intergovernmental Relations team, including Zane Barnes, Kaylin Kenny, and Steve Stamos, and our federal and state lobbying partners, Leslie Polner from Holland and Knight, and Steve Cruz and his team from Cruz Strategies. We're excited to present our 2023 summer report from Intergovernmental Relations, which we'll be referring to as IGR. This is not working. Maybe we'll get someone to get the slides to work. I'll keep going. IGR's work is extensive. This is our attempt to summarize recent activities. Our work is about partnerships, networks, and collaboration. By working with internal and external teams, over $28 million was brought to the area in various forms of federal, state, and regional funding. This includes funding through state earmarks, the state budget, and successful grant applications. We're tracking over 360 state and federal bills, many of which we've taken a position on. This legislative session, we issued over 120 advocacy letters on legislation, grant funding, and other city priorities. We're also sponsoring 3 bills in the state legislature, and of course, there's the daily work of representing our city's interests in many, many, many meetings with legislators and partner agencies. I'm now pleased to hand it off to Zane Barnes, but also want to recognize that our work is possible due to the strong engagement of the subject matter experts in our departments, as well as our partners in the Mayor's Office, Ryan Coonerty and Mackenzie Mosing. And with that, I'll pass it on to Zane.
Zane Barnes, Chief Intergovernmental Relations Officer for the City of San Jose. IGR is guided by 5 legislative priorities as approved by Council in December 2022. These priorities inform how IGR focuses the city's advocacy resources. Not in any particular order, we have promoting safety and Vision Zero initiatives, addressing homelessness and enabling affordable housing, pursuing infrastructure funding, driving impactful climate action, and being a relentless advocate for San Jose families. I'll now pass to Leslie Polner of Holland & Knight to provide a federal update.
Thanks so much, Zane and Sarah, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you. Leslie Polner, I co-lead Holland & Knight's local government practice, and it's a pleasure to represent the city of San Jose and Washington, D.C. At the moment, Congress is in recess, but when they return, top of mind is going to be passing a federal budget, which needs to be done by September 30th. Normally, they would pass a short-term, what's known as a continuing resolution, essentially giving themselves more time to continue to negotiate. Normally, that would be a very pro forma effort, but nothing is easy these days in Washington, D.C., and there is some discussion that at the end of the month, we could be faced with a government shutdown if they can't reach an agreement on a continuing resolution, also known in Washington parlance as a CR. There's going to be quite a bit of bandwidth spent on trying to come to a negotiation. You've got folks on the right who very much want to see funding levels cut, even in a short-term continuing resolution, which would be extremely unusual. Now, many of you may recall that the debt ceiling agreement, known as the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023, which was signed on June 3rd, suspended the debt ceiling until June 2025. And this legislation also outlined top-line expenditure numbers for the FY24 budget. Presumably, that would have made things easier because, of course, we had reached a deal. But the House has proceeded to mark up their bills to lower levels than what was agreed to in the debt ceiling. Meanwhile, the Senate has marked up to the levels outlined in the debt ceiling deal, or in some cases, higher than the debt ceiling deal. And so therein lies the impasse. And so the Senate has moved all of their bills out of committee. The House is attempting to vote on their bills on the floor, although there is actually disagreement within the Republican Party even on those measures. And so the bottom line is it's a little chaotic over there, and we may be in for a very exciting fall. When the House returns in September, they'll only have 12 legislative days to agree with the Senate on the CR, so we're going to be under a bit of a time crunch as well. That said, there are some very good highlights as well. So we've worked with the city's IGR team to successfully advocate for the inclusion of nearly $3 million in congressionally directed spending and community project funding, formerly known as earmarks, in the House Appropriations bills. The funding is still pending in a final package, but if approved, this is going to include $1 million for the expansion of the Rue Ferrari Emergency Interim Housing Site, which was championed by Congressman Panetta, $850,000 for Link Cunningham improvements, also championed by Congressman Panetta, $850,000 for safe improvements to Jackson Avenue, championed by Congressman Khanna, $500,000 for the Blossom Hill Senior Affordable Housing Development, championed by Congressman Panetta, $500,000 for safety and transit improvements to the Monterey Road corridor, also championed by Congresswoman Eshoo. We've also worked with the IGR team to help secure $10 million in grant funding from the Federal Aviation Administration for the airport's Taxiway Victor project. And lastly, we've been working closely with IGR to strongly advocate for DOT and Caltrain's joint $10 million federal-state partnership grant application. And while this is still pending, this funding would be critical for helping the redesign of Diridon Station. Finally, we just want to highlight a few additional legislation and policy actions at the federal level of interest to the city. Reauthorization of the Federal Aviation Administration is underway, and Also needs to be passed by the end of September to reauthorize funding and update regulations for the next 5 years. Senator Cantwell, who chairs the Senate Commerce Committee, has already stated that there's going to be an extension needed to pass this legislation, and we're working closely with the airport to monitor the legislation. We'll note that this is kind of one of the few bright spots and anticipate that they will get to a final bill either by the end of this year or early next year. Issued during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, Title 42 allowed authorities to turn away migrants at the country's borders. In early May, Title 42 was lifted at the United States southern border, and while border crossings were expected to increase, the Department of Homeland Security maintains that there's been a substantial decrease in unlawful border crossings since the end of the policy. And in June, guidance was also released on key provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act to expand the reach of clean energy tax credits. This marks really the first time that these types of tax credits have been available to cities, and we're working closely with IGR to closely monitor the rollout of this program so that city departments can utilize and benefit from these tax credits. Finally, in March, the Environmental Protection Agency announced the proposed national primary drinking water regulation for 6 types of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which are also known as PFAS. It's important to have the acronym there, which will be finalized by December 2023. And the proposed rule would require that public water systems to monitor and reduce the levels of PFAS in drinking water if they exceed the proposed standards. And so we're monitoring this regulation as it could impact the operations of the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. I'll now turn it back to Zane.
Thanks, Leslie. The IGR team takes a forward-leaning stance on the state budget. We started advocating for the city's priorities before the governor's January proposed budget, as well as ahead of the May revise. The budget addressed a $32 billion deficit, which could still increase due to the October tax filing deadline extension. Despite this, the approved budget does not include deep cuts to ongoing programs. In late May, Governor Newsom announced a set of policy proposals to streamline approval of clean energy, water, and transportation infrastructure projects. 5 bills were passed by the legislature in early July with the goal of maximizing California's share of federal infrastructure funding and expediting the implementation of projects that will advance the state's economic, climate, and social goals. IGR will be working with departments to strategize projects that can benefit from these reforms. Some programmatic budget highlights include $1 billion for the 5th round of the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, $78.1 million for the Cal Volunteers Youth Workforce Program, $255 million over 3 years in local law enforcement grants to address crime, and $5.1 billion over 4 years for transportation funding, thereby restoring the full $4 billion in the Transit Intercity Rail Program that was initially cut. The IGR team secured 2 earmarks in the state budget championed by Assemblymember Kalra that provide direct funding for city priorities. This includes $2 million for the city's eviction diversion program and $1.5 million for the water quality and shoreline improvements at Lake Cunningham. For state grants, IGR coordinated letters of support for 2 successful projects, a climate adaptation planning project submitted by the city manager's office and a landfill gas mitigation project submitted by the Environmental Services Department. IGR also advocated for several important investments in the state budget, including $1 billion in additional funding for the high-priority transit and rail infrastructure projects and the restoration of the $4 billion in TIRCP funding, which will benefit the BART to Silicon Valley project. Also, the restoration of $78.1 million in the Cal Volunteers Youth Workforce funding in partnership with the Big City Mayors Alliance. The IGR team is still working diligently to advance 3 pieces of city-sponsored legislation this session. SB 400 on termination disclosure is sponsored by Senator Wahab, and this bill would enable police departments to share disclosable information about officer termination for misconduct without an open records request. It is currently on the assembly floor. AB 645 on automated speed enforcement is sponsored by Assemblymember Friedman. This bill is the furthest an automated speed enforcement bill has ever gotten in the legislature. It would be a pilot of 6 cities, including San Jose. We work diligently to address privacy and equity considerations, and it is currently in the Senate Appropriations Committee. Finally, SB 8 on firearm liability insurance is sponsored by Senator Blakespear. This bill would create a statewide firearm liability insurance requirement, and we've been working with the author's office to mirror it to the city's gun harm reduction ordinance. This is now a 2-year bill and cannot be acted upon until January 2024. Of the 360 bills we are monitoring, there are a few highlights organized by legislative priority. In housing and homelessness, SB 634 involves emergency interim housing streamlining. We're working with the author's office on amendments to this 2-year bill, and we are also in support of AB 1469 to expand Valley Water's scope to address homelessness. In Safety and Vision Zero, we successfully eliminated another bill around police radio encryption, SB 719, and this is now a 2-year bill. In Equitable and Resilient Infrastructure, we're supporting AB 1505, which would provide funding for the seismic retrofitting for soft-story multifamily housing. In climate action, we're closely monitoring 2 climate bonds, AB 1567 and SB 867, which, if passed by voters in 2024, would provide millions in climate bond funding. Finally, and in equitable outcomes and prosperity for families, we supported Senator Cortese's bill to increase overdose prevention efforts in schools, and the mayor supported Senator Eggman's SB 43 on conservatorship reform. Both bills are still active. The IGR team successfully collaborates with other agencies to secure resources for the city. In partnership with VTA, we advocated for the restoration of the TRCP funding that was initially cut by the governor, which would benefit the BART to Silicon Valley project. In addition, we advocated for increased funding for the multifamily soft story retrofit program, which was established last year, but directed spending in future years. The FY 23-24 budget will provide $15 million for the program, and the remaining $235 million will be provided in following years, subject to trigger restoration. We will continue to work to support the city's priorities, including table growth for our card rooms to support revenue, partnering with sponsors on SB 634 on EIH CEQA provisions, and monitoring the state budget trailer bill language and the federal budget negotiations. IGR is also kicking off an update to the legislative program, including the development of the next legislative session's priorities and activities. This will be presented to Council for approval in the fall. This concludes our presentation, and we're asking Council to accept the summer IGR report and reaffirm the city positions in the federal and state legislative logs. Thank you, and we look forward to your questions.
Great, thank you. Just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you, Leslie and Steve, and your respective teams in DC and in Sacramento. Really appreciate the partnership, and I think this council's willingness to focus and prioritize and say, you know, we're really focused on public safety, on getting people housed, on making our streets safer, on investing in Lake Cunningham has given us the ability to go after more dollars and I think have even more success. So I know we started the year in a rough place with those big budget deficits in Sacramento, but I've been impressed with everything we've gotten done with your guidance, and of course, Sarah and Zane, you guys have been integral to our efforts on the city side, and I know Ryan Coonerty, who heads up IGR for my office, has really enjoyed working with all of you. So thank you. A lot of progress this year, and I appreciate the council's willingness during the budget process to prioritize and focus, because I think it empowers our IGR professionals and consultants here to send a stronger message in Washington and Sacramento about where we need help, and makes the pitch that much stronger. So with that, we're going to come back for council discussion and questions in a moment. Let's go to public comment first.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Hope you can hear me okay, if my connection's okay. Thanks a lot for this item. Good beginning item to start with. Thanks a lot for working on Lake Cunningham issues. It's nice that's coming around well. About the soft story retrofit issues, it's a nice nod to Jackie Morales-Brand to say hi to her. I guess she's retiring now. Paul Soto had mentioned that with this new program, this is a program that Jackie's been working on for like years, since I first was here back in 2014. Paul Soto mentioned that as you are now starting to work on these things, it's possible that owners will have to remove tenants for a time. And we have to be sure that there's good connections with that tenants can be taken care of in the short period where owners have to retrofit. Good luck in that effort. I had comments on the policing issues, that you have a gun buyback policy issue that also includes additional funding for gun things. And I wonder if that is going to be more and more shot spotter tech. I think we really have to review our shot spotter policy and realize, a shot spotter every block, every 300 feet on the east side of San Jose is really the ideas of over policing. That we can do it with like a third of that amount and still do the same good practices. Yeah, I mean, we have to start a bit of a different philosophy from the previous mayoral administration. Good luck on those efforts. It's really important work. You talked about police what's it called? Mutual aid, I think it's what it's called, counseling services for themselves. There can be really good practices in how police can do that with each other, giving each other counseling to soften the process. We don't know how to quite do that yet. We do that with domestic issues, and to conclude, a good look on housing issues and a 24-hour notification for encampments is not good enough. Make it please 72 hours. Thanks.
Rocio?
Hello, my name is Rocio Molina. I am the Interim Deputy Director of Catalyze SV. Hello, Mayor, City Council members. I am very happy and energized to hear how collaboratively everyone is thinking about tackling the safety and housing issues that our community members have expressed a lot of concern about. As you all know, we host regular community conversations to discuss the values and priorities that residents may identify along topics of development. In the last year, we've heard a lot from community members, particularly in East San Jose, about the need for updates to the roads, for safety measures, for access and walkability for young people and seniors. We're happy to hear that this work is being done on Monterey Road in San Jose and look forward to hearing more about upcoming plans and opportunities for the community to be engaged in that process. We welcome the community members to participate as thought partners in these conversations and definitely urge the City Council and the Mayor to think about them in this way as well. Thank you so much, and thank you to the staff as well for their work on this.
Back to Council.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Believe new system here. It looks like Councilmember Cohen, you're up first.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say how appreciative, how great it is to have a team like the team we have in the city of San Jose doing this work on our behalf. I talk to a lot of people around the state, and they're envious that, obviously as a big city, we have the luxury of doing this work, but I want to thank you for that. We'll brush you up on your organic chemistry a little later so you can pronounce polyfluoroalkyls, but that's okay. I just have a couple questions. First of all, on the chart that said priority legislation, when it was priority, does that mean those are bills that we're just watching, or are we bills that we're supporting?
It's a mix of both, council member. The priority legislation we put out there are things that are having a lot of steam in Sacramento in particular, and so we wanted to make sure that we highlighted those in that priority legislation piece.
I see. Okay, thank you. On the speed camera enforcement bill, there was talk in the discussion about amendments and things that we might be concerned about. Can you just describe a little bit about what's happening and what amendments we might be concerned about or what we're pushing for?
Yes, Steve Cruz with Cruz Strategies. Thank you for the question, council member. So there's been lots of amendments on this bill. As you may recall, this is about the third attempt. I feel that Assemblywoman Friedman, who chairs the Transportation Committee, has done an incredible job of reaching out to stakeholders to try to address issues that have been raised and then anticipate what we might expect. So a lot of them were around privacy, they were around protecting those that may not have the means to pay for the tickets. They were around impacts to like public safety officers and what their roles are. And so just briefly, they were some of the amendments were limiting like the locations where the camera located, ensuring that it wasn't video, but it may just be a still photograph. It was ensuring that it wasn't sort of a gotcha or a bounty hunter in terms of how they use those fees. So it was a long list, but I think a lot of them were good amendments to address legitimate issues that have been raised. But happy to provide that more exhaustive list, but that's sort of the general nature around where the amendments were going and what they were trying to do to address issues that have been raised. I hope that helps.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And then I just have a question more generally about the big number of environmental climate bills that are on that list. I noticed that we're not supporting any of them. We sort of are watching them, like we are a lot of bills. Are there any bills in particular that we think could be helpful towards some of our goals that we might want to support or we might want to be more actively involved in?
I know there was a few that do stand out that we support. I know one of them was on sea level rise. I think maybe the mayor may have supported separately. I can't recall if it was as a council position or not. And then there are a few other bills, and I don't have them by number, but generally around the issue of like extreme heat and reducing climate emissions. And then there's a number of other bills wherein there are obligations on the city as well, that I think those are ones that we sort of look at and just sort of make a determination if these are indeed requirements, can we meet them, and is there adequate funding to implement the programs to do that? But I think we have a pretty healthy list of environmental related bills, and I don't have them, sorry, at the tip of my fingers here, but we can certainly provide you with a more exhaustive list as well.
Sorry, and just to add to what Steve was referencing, we're really closely monitoring to the two climate bills, AB 1567 and SB 867, as they make their way. They're in the process of being merged, and if approved by the legislator and by voters in either March or November 2024, would provide sort of billions in climate bond funding for drought, flood, water, wildlife, and heat resilience. And then there are also two additional climate bonds, AB 305 and SB 867, which provide alternate funding categories and are unclear if they'll be merged or eliminated, so we're monitoring those as well. We've actually not taken a position on them yet, as they're really working through an amendment process, and we're working in collaboration with Valley Water to see what kind of carve-outs within those climate bonds we could probably secure before we move into a support position or a position at all on those ones.
Right, and those bonds, we've discussed those at the city's level. Obviously, those are important because they provide us resources. I'm also at some point, maybe interested in what some of those other bills are that might provide. There's some funding for pocket forests. There's some funding out there for other kinds of initiatives that we do locally. And the list is long. I couldn't get through the details of all the bills, but I'm just curious about how we sort of decide what in some of those areas would be good for us to support. But we can talk about that offline. I just was curious about that. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councilmember. Councilmember Foley?
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I always enjoy hearing the update from the IGR team, both at a federal and local level. And we've been particularly involved and following AB 645. So I want to just follow up a little bit on the questions that Councilmember Cohen had. So it passed the Assembly, strong numbers, went through a committee at the Senate, struggled a little bit, but passed ultimately. It's going to appropriations next, is that correct?
Councilmember Foley, yes, that's correct. It is currently in the Senate Appropriations Committee.
And what are your thoughts about passing through appropriations?
Well, we've done the necessary outreach with the chair and members of the committee, and are working with other supporters. And in this case, the chairman, Chris Holden, represents, Senator Portantino represents Glendale. So we've tried to make it a point to ensure that as cities reach out to him. At this point, we are not aware of any concerns of the chair, but I think we've said this before, and we learned in prior efforts that the Appropriations Committee process is somewhat of a black box in that the bills get put on suspense and the chair has the discretion to sort of make the decisions around the outcome and amendments. So we are doing our best and staying in close contact with the author's office to figure out if there are any issues and to make sure those are communicated so we can address them. A long way of saying that as of now, they haven't expressed concerns. We'll continue to be diligent and make sure that we are aware of any that come through.
Wonderful. And when is it likely to go to appropriations for discussion and vote?
It is at the end of August, which they'll make a decision for bills that come off of suspense.
Okay. So I know many of the council offices have been involved in advocating for AB 645, and please let us know what you need us to do and when you need us to do it. I stand ready to contact whoever's on the appropriations. Do we have city council San Jose people on appropriations? Who's on appropriations from our city?
We do. We have Senator Cortese and Senator Wahab are both on the committee. Yeah, so both of our senators are on the committee.
Yes, unfortunately, Cortese voted against it in his prior committee. Anything we can do to, I know his concerns were privacy to some degree, and the equity. Have we been able to alleviate his concerns, or has Assemblywoman Freeman been able to alleviate his concerns?
You know, we've tried to continue to stay engaged with their office. I think you're right, it was around privacy and just sort of, I think, some philosophical sort of issues, I guess, around cameras themselves. But we have tried to figure out if there are things that we can do to address those concerns, or maybe add things that are additive to it that he may be trying to address. Not complicated, but there were issues around like worker safety, and so were there things like that we can incorporate. So we're exploring that. Our hope is that we can get Senator Cortese to support it, but if we believe we can get it out without his support, but our hope is to get him there.
Okay, it would be nice to have local support as well, so I appreciate that, and I'll be watching that very closely, and I know others up here will be watching that closely. It's just another tool that we'll be able to utilize to slow down speed and save lives, and it's an important piece of legislation, but I acknowledge that there are some issues that need to be worked through to privacy amongst them, and equity is the other that we need to be concerned and aware about that. In your presentation today, there was a lot of grant money available, and it's wonderful that we're tracking that and that we're applying for the grants where available. We really don't want to leave any money on the table, especially when it comes to housing, homelessness, and public safety. So I'm grateful for your efforts and advocacy to try and get all those dollars into the city of San Jose, and of course the mayor's been very involved in that as well. Do you have, or does the city have any plans to apply for the local law enforcement gun buyback grant? Or is that a question for the city manager? Chief's not here, so. Or maybe I'll
Councilmember,
find
we'd be
out.
happy to follow up with the
Okay.
department and get back to you.
That'd be great. Thank you. That's it for, I will move approval or acceptance of the report.
Second.
I think I heard Councilmember Candelas. Excellent. Okay, thank you. We're on to Councilmember Torres.
Great. There you go. New system. Thank you again for that presentation. I just have I have a couple of questions. I think my team, or myself, somebody on my team, emailed the team about AB 441, which makes it easier for night markets to be organized in cities. And I know our downtown and other parts of our city have recently been re-energized with night markets. Wow, this is really loud, by the way. So how can that get on the list to be so our city can officially support that?
Thank you, Council Member. This bill was a last-minute gut and amend bill, and we previously supported it when it was about periodic tax credits for low-income families, but it recently changed. The author has signed an intent to gut and amend this bill to support night markets, but there is no new bill language available at this time. And so the author's office asked us to follow up after the legislative recess in mid-August. And so we will do that.
Okay, great. And the other ones, my next statements are going to be a little bit more controversial. I do not see us supporting any bills that maybe protect tenants, like AB 12 from Assemblymember Haney that limits security deposits. How can that get on the list for us to support?
Councilmember, I'm sorry, we don't have the information in front of us for that specific bill, but we would be happy to look that up, follow up with your office, and depending on the bill language, we would have to bring that back to council.
Okay, great. And that also goes with federal bills, as we all know. Unfortunately, I know we have a split Congress. But I would like to see this body, support bills, primarily probably more in the Senate, since I know that the House is controlled by Republicans, but bills in the Senate or at the federal level that support our immigrant community, our LGBTQ community, and of course, gun control. So, thank you.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, if I could just follow up on AB 12. We are currently working on a support letter for that bill. So we'll be able to take care of that internally. And I'm sorry, Lee, did you want to add something?
Just since it's a process-related question, Council Member, when we come forward in the fall, which many of you did not have the opportunity to do, the Council will approve legislative guiding principles and a program that really directs this work and what the focus is. If there are bills that coincide with that program and allow the team to move and be flexible and support or oppose, they will do that. Anything outside of that, a council member can bring forward a memo to the Rules Committee on specific legislation or anything else that the team will then analyze and bring forward to the council. But ultimately, the full council, whether it's those individual bills or through ratification of this report, makes an approval process, whether it's support or oppose.
Great. No, thank you for that. I think it's very important for us to continue to let our tenants know that as a city, although we haven't passed some policy that protects tenants here at the city level, but at the state level, that we're supportive of that. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Candelas?
How about now? Okay, I think this works. My comments are going to be brief. I know from firsthand experience, the hard work that IGR teams bring and the value that you bring, not just to the city of San Jose, but to the region with your advocacy for making sure that we get the transit and near-city rail capital program funding for the BART to San Jose. That's critical work. And I also want to give a shout out and a thank you to our state delegation, specifically Assemblymember Ash Kalra. The action that we took earlier this year with regards to Lake Cunningham, while it wasn't the outcome fully that I wanted, we still prioritized it for funding and for you all to help me do my job better by calling Assemblymember Kalra and advocating for the funding. And I was happy to see the $1.5 million go towards the lake. That's much needed. Huge shout out, and I think that helped spark more funding, specifically going to the Open Space Authority and getting even more dollars that would not have been appropriated to the project if the $1.5 million wasn't put in the budget in June. So I'm super grateful and appreciative of the work that you all do, and to my colleague's point earlier about legislative guiding principles, to have a flexibility to be able to do your job and advocate for the city without having to go, is this bill qualify? Is this bill qualify? I think that's important. I look forward to seeing the principles in the fall and engaging with your office to be able to shape and help get a better vision for making sure that we're prioritizing the right things as a city and as a body. So thank you, and that wraps up my comments.
Thanks, Councilmember. Councilmember Batra?
Thanks, Chair. All right, got the mic on. First challenge. Thank you very much for the report and the advocacy which you do and bring the funds to the city for many, many different projects. The question is on AB 1469, which is getting Valley District, Santa Clara Valley Water District, to allow more spend on the homelessness activity. We already have a project going on with the water district. They're funding about $6 million for cleaning up one particular encampment. This bill, does it give them a blanket authority to take care of any other projects and fund for us?
Thank you, Councilmember. AB 1469, which we've been working in collaboration with Valley Water on, really expands the scope of Valley Water's authority to address homelessness. What that means in terms of what will be practically done, I think is yet to be worked out by the board at Valley Water. But this just expands their ability and scope to act on homelessness programs through this legislation. This legislation is continuing to move through the legislative process, and we're working in concert with Valley Water to secure a successful passage. And as you'll see, we've already supported this legislation early on.
But they would need to still identify additional projects. Right now, we have one project going on with them without this 1469. So you're saying once they have the power given to them under 1469, they will be able to easily commit to more projects with us.
Councilmember, as I understand, this authority, if this legislation passes, they will gain this authority, and therefore the board at Valley Water will be able to expand their scope to take on homelessness projects. And so I think that we can continue conversations about which priority projects we may want them to consider.
Okay, thank you for that. On page 7, you've described that you're going after for some funding from $85 million, which have been allocated in the 23-24 state budget for fighting the organized retail theft, motor vehicle and motor vehicle accessory theft, and cargo theft support. So you have applied for getting some money out of that $85 million. You know when that money might be allocated, or when is the allocations are expected?
Councilmember, I know that it's a priority for us to apply for this grant funding. I think we're still awaiting a NOFO of the actual funding availability for this grant program, and we can circle back with your office and provide additional information as the NOFO becomes available, and we will work with the police department on advocacy for this grant program.
Yeah, because we are obviously experiencing quite a lot of these reports, retail theft. And if you need any letter of support or anything for that one, my office will be more than happy to give it. And thank you for pursuing this grant.
Councilmember, just as a quick follow-up, I was just notified by the team that they actually have already applied for the retail theft grant program, and we're awaiting a decision on the grant funding. So we'll keep you informed as that progresses.
No information on when that allocation may be announced?
I was just looking it up as you were asking the question, council members. So it looks like, as Zane said, the proposals were due on July 7th, and that there will be a panel that reviewing it in early August for like initial adequacy for the application. And I will have to get back to you on a date for actually announcement on the awards.
Okay, thank you very much. Hope you get a lot of it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Council Member. Go to Vice Mayor Kameh.
Thank you. I really want to thank the way you operate and how quickly, because I know that a lot of legislation changes very quickly, so I really appreciate how much information you provide to us. So I just wanted to say thank you to you and the team for all the work that you do. I'm looking forward into the upcoming cycle, and I feel a little bit more connected to what's happening at the state than I am at the federal level. I know when I met with Congressman Ro Khanna, you know, the opportunity to think about anything had already passed, and everything happened so, you know, sort of far in advance. I'm hoping that I'm interested in becoming involved. I know our mayor is very involved as the leader of our city, but I think that those of us who have very good relationships with the congressional delegation can be helpful. And I found that you know, if I can be helpful at the state, I will do what I can. I also want to offer that I can also be helpful with our local delegation as well, and many of us here can probably do that. Earlier, my colleague, Councilmember Torres, already kind of touched on my question on what is the process to consider support of a bill from the council of the city, and I heard that it's coming with supportive issues and things like that. Does that same thing happen at the federal level? If we're sort of looking at that, does it happen like all together?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The legislative program is encompassing of both of our state and federal priorities. One of the projects that we will undertake this fall is a bifurcation of our federal and state priorities to make that very, very clear what issues we'll be advocating for on the federal side. And then our state side will be the legislative program that it currently looks like, but that will be an evolution. But currently our legislative program does encompass our state and federal legislative actions.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and you know, I look forward to what's up and coming. We always appreciate those grant dollars, and anything that we can do to be supportive is certainly that you can count on me for. So thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Vice Mayor. Councilor Ortiz?
Turned it off. First off, I just want to thank so much the IGR team under the leadership of Sarah. It's been great to partner with you, Zane, on the Cities Association Legislative Committee. The wealth of knowledge that you bring to those meetings are extremely valuable, and I think all the other cities, even though we may not always agree with the other cities, get value out of the knowledge that you bring and the advice that you bring to those representatives. So I just wanted to thank everyone for their leadership. I just wanted to, I raised my hand earlier, and then my colleague, Councilmember Torres, mentioned the specific bill, AB 12 from Assemblymember Haney. I just can't understate how important, or overstate how important that bill is. I mean, as a renter, I just moved into a new apartment, and the deposit was $5,000. And as a council member, I can afford that, but before this, I was a nonprofit employee. There's no way I would be able to put $5,000 down at an apartment, let alone, I bet you, a majority of our staff and entry level, middle level wouldn't be able to afford a deposit at that level. So this is something that is crucial. It's actually a great way to help our employees without it impacting our budget. And just half of the city in the city of San Jose are tenants, and they deserve our time and advocacy as well. So I hope we could move that to priority. And I think you mentioned we already are considering that, so I appreciate that. And I'm also interested in sending in a personal letter of support as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Appreciate your comments. Just a few questions and comments from me. First, on automated speed enforcement, appreciate my colleagues' questions on that issue, and we've been very vocal in Sacramento on that front. I think I just encourage colleagues to keep reaching out to our delegation and letting them know that we really need this tool to make our streets safer. That's something each of us can do. Steve, on mental health, as you know, I care deeply about both reforming and expanding the state's mental health care system, and have been excited by some of the proposals from the governor, including a potential measure next year, and then Senator Eggman's bills, in particular SB 43. At this point, what do you see as the prospects for these efforts? What are you hearing in Sacramento?
Well, I guess taking in order, the SB 43, of which you were an early supporter, I know the city engaged in the development of that bill through the big city mayors. It's actually moved along. It's previously, I guess, in prior legislative sessions, it's had some challenges, but I think given like the scope and nature of the challenges that we're seeing, in our communities. I think that the legislature has somewhat changed their view on it, so it has enjoyed support. It has there's a long list of co-authors on the bill, and I think right now there's a lot of optimism that the bill will get through the legislature, and certainly the governor, I think he sort of signaled that he's looking for these reforms. So I think we feel pretty optimistic about HB 43. The other measures that you referenced are both the bond of about $5 billion that would go on the ballot in November. That bill has not gone through the process yet, but it's in tandem with another bill that would make changes to Prop 63, the MHSA, say the millionaire tax, I guess, and allow for funding to be used for substance abuse and those that are mentally ill for housing services. And so, again, I think that the governor has, signaled his desire that this be a priority and has legislative support. So I think the question there is going to be, and that's looking at potentially the March ballot. The question is what the debt service the state as a whole can take on. And there's other bonds that are circulating. I think it was mentioned, the climate bond, there's school bonds, there's another housing bond. And so what that number is that the state can absorb. But I feel like those are, I think right now, stand near the top in terms of what the state would want to take on.
Great, thanks for that context, that's helpful.
And Mayor, just to add on real quickly, we've been engaged with the county IGR team on this as well, and we're waiting for their assessment on the MHSA through CSAC in urban counties of California, and so we just want to make sure that we have that information as we evaluate and position ourselves.
Great. Has the county taken a position yet on SB 43?
They took a supportive amended position. One of their largest pieces they wanted is delayed implementation, which is now in the legislation. So I think that they may not change their position to supportive amend because they didn't get all of their amendments. But we're continuing to work with them and recognizing that SB 43 is a priority.
Great, thanks for doing that. And then Leslie, on the Washington side, as you know, I've strongly supported our $10 million application for safe streets and roads for all. With the gridlock and polarization we're seeing in Washington, how can we best position ourselves to secure these funds?
I think this is one bright spot. The administration has been really aggressive in rolling out this program. I think the city's put forward a really strong application this round. I think, your weighing in on behalf of this application, I think would go a long way. We've secured a full round of letters of support from our delegation. They are very supportive of the application. And so I think we have good odds here. I will say this, the administration has also been exceptional about providing debriefs, and the team has been really proactive in seeking debriefs whenever they're not successful around applications. And so I think that the steady drumbeat of what a high priority this is going to go a long way.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then, and look forward to working with you to make sure we're engaging the administration as effectively as we can be to secure those dollars.
Absolutely.
And then finally, as I talk to other big city mayors around the state, it's pretty clear that our fentanyl and opioid crisis is driving a lot of suffering in our community, homelessness, crime, mental health challenges. Is there anything moving in Washington that might be helpful on that front that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so there is legislation moving. So part of the National Defense Authorization Act, which is a must-pass piece of legislation that the Senate just passed before they left for recess, includes some language that would strengthen sanctions around transnational criminal organizations as well as trafficking penalties. There's also a package of bills known as the Support Act that previously passed in 2018. The House Energy and Commerce Committee just passed this legislation, and it's expected to be taken up on the House floor this fall. The Senate has similar but not the same legislation, and so they'll have to work out their differences. The Support Act is important, and it includes kind of a wide variety of pieces, looking at strengthening training around fentanyl overdose prevention. There's language in there that would make the ability for states to provide the IMD waiver permanent. The piece that it's missing and the piece that I think cities really are struggling with right now is direct funding to help address the crisis. And I think that's a piece we're going to need to keep a steady drumbeat on. But I will say the one piece on this is that, this is an issue that's hitting urban, rural, suburban communities. And so I think there is a bipartisan recognition that this is a true crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. If you see opportunities for us to lean in, whether it's letters, op-eds, other things we can do to draw attention, please let me know. Please let us know.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Well, I don't see any other hands. I, once again, appreciate the update and all the collaboration. It's been great working with this team here, and look forward to continuing to advance our agenda in Sacramento and Washington. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I know we still have a vote to go. We had a motion from Councilmember Foley, second from Candelas. I think we are ready to vote. Okay, looks like that passes unanimously. We are, thank you again to everybody on IGR. Okay, we are on to item 3.4, which is the public hearing for the fiscal year 23-24 sanitary sewer service and use charge and storm sewer service charge assessments. No staff presentation. Do we need to open the hearing, Nora? Is that what we're doing now? Great. We are opening the hearing, and why don't we go to public comment?
Blair?
Hi, hola, Blair Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. You're doing a lot of work with stormwater issues. I mentioned before the importance how you were, law enforcement was part of, the getting people away from creeks and such. A real good look how you can use federal funding dollars well for these sort of issues today. It's really important that we consider accountability practices, and that federal funding dollars it has a important a goal that we can make clear a whole bunch of different things, including sea level rise issues around North San Jose, and a lot of things can be of help at this time. Good luck in how to understand and facilitate these things, and law enforcement can be used minimally, and how to talk about the subsidy process for this item. Make that clear and accessible to the public. Thank you.
Back to council.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands. Council members, questions or a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Great. Thank you. Motion by Cohen, second by Foley. Let's vote. Okay.
Motion passes unanimously.
We're on to item 3.5, which is the public hearing for the 23-24 residential solid waste collection service charges. Let's open the hearing on item 3.5 and go to public comment.
I have no hands.
Okay, back to council. I'm sorry, let me shift my screen here.
Move approval.
Second.
By Foley, second by Vice Mayor Kamei. And I see a hand. Councilmember Batra.
Got it. Right. Okay. I think probably Assistant City Manager may have to answer. Ever since we have merged or started sending the trash bill through the Santa Clara County tax bill, I received some requests or questions about that. Is it possible to have in that a letter explaining how much is the charge for the trash? Because right now it gets merged into the number of items, and some of the people have felt that they never know what it is. You're not going to send a separate bill, but is it possible for it to be included in that tax bill which goes?
Thank you for the question. Rick Bruno, Director of Finance. So on the actual property tax bill, there is a line item which will show garbage service current, and that is the line item that will detail the amount for the year.
Is it possible to have a separate page included in there which tells that?
I'm not sure, John. Would you?
We would have to look into that with the county. Typically, there's extra charges if we want to add additional literature and extra coordination and so forth. But we could look into the possibility if you'd like.
That's all I request. Explore it. I know it's an additional work and also additional expense. They may or may not want to do it. And but since I received the request from several constituents, it would be worth exploring and explaining it.
So, Council Member, I think when we are establishing the rates, Finance, we do send, well, actually through our ESD department, I believe, we send out notices to all the residents and businesses about what those rates will be and give information about that once a year before. And so if any resident or businesses wants more explanation, there's certainly where we can handle that call if they call our customer service line and we can get somebody to explain the bill. That might be more cost effective.
Okay, thank you.
More than happy to help.
And I'll also add that on our webpage, we keep it updated with the current rates and information about the bill there. So that is another resource for residents to be able to see the charges.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Council Member. Okay, with that, we'll close the hearing and vote. Great, that passes unanimously. We are on to item 3.6, which is the fiscal year 23-24 property tax levy for our general obligation bonds. Let's go to public comment.
I have no hands.
Okay, back to the council. Let's see here, switching back. I don't see any hands. Councilmember Foley.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Jimenez. Thank you both. Okay, let's vote. Okay. That also passes unanimously. Thank you. We're on to item 3.7, which is the waiver of revolving door restrictions. Let's go to public comment.
I have no hands.
Okay. Back to the council. I just had a quick question. I haven't seen enough of these to know what our general practice has been here. And Lee or others, I don't know if anybody has any insight here. What is traditionally, but can you just remind me what the rationale for the restriction has been? And I know we've waived it in the past, but what typically is our standard for waiving? Does anybody have any thoughts?
Mayor, I didn't know if you were asking that of me or the clerk.
Well, I'm not sure who to direct that to. Potentially you, Nora. What do you think? You want to take a crack at it?
Sure. There are criteria under the city's revolving door ordinance, and if the council determines that those criteria are met and that it is in the city's interest to, in addition to other criteria, to grant a waiver, then the council can do that, but it really is up to the council.
Got it. Okay. And do we, sorry, I'm trying to get back to my home screen here. Let's go to Councilmember Batra.
This one, how is this particular request helpful to the city for a waiver?
Councilmember, That is a question you may want to ask of the applicant, who is, I understand is here or available.
It says Neelam's in the box, is that?
Yeah, she's not. As far as, maybe she's online.
Is Neelam online? I have in my notes that Neelam in the city attorney's office should be in the box on this one. Is she online, potentially?
I don't think she is, but your applicant is here.
Oh, hi, Ally. Didn't see you there. Come on up if you want to. I think the question, council member, was how is this in the benefit of the city to grant a waiver?
Right, because it seems the revolving door policy is such which says going to for-profit, there were a lot of restrictions on it. Going to a non-profit, it was considered that a city-trained employee going there is helpful. And this one is going from city to a profit. How is this one helpful to the city and the optics of it especially?
Is this, I think it would be best, sorry, it's weird hearing my own echo. I think it would be best, I have some remarks prepared. If it's all right, if I can just go through those, I think it'll answer your question in the process.
Hopefully it does, and otherwise we'll ask some more.
Sure, fair enough. So, hello everyone, it's great to see you all again. My name is Ally Hughes, and I'm a lifelong resident of District 2 and a recent graduate from San Jose State University with my master's in public administration. And I'm here to respectfully ask for a waiver for my revolving door policy for two main reasons. First, the issues that I worked on at the city when I was a member of Councilmember Cohen's staff do not overlap in any way with the work that I currently do in my new role. And second, because I was only at the city for a very short amount of time. So being raised in San Jose and being a second generation of the city, I was deeply honored to serve on council members' team and to give back to our San Jose community. So in my capacity in his office, my main policy areas included the EIHC site over at Noble, tree coverage and staffing levels at the San Jose Police Department. And in my current role at Canyon Snow Consulting, there is no overlap between the work that I did at the city and the work that I do there. And my second reason for respectfully requesting this waiver is the revolving door policy is lasting significantly longer than my time at the city was. I started my role as Councilmember Cohen's policy director on July 11th, 2022, and my last day with his office was October 14th, 2022. So I was at the city just a little over 3 months, and my revolving door policy has currently lasted a little over 10 months. And so because of that, this current revolving door with the city has restricted me from serving our broader San Jose community for over 3 times as long as when I was actually at the city. Finally, being a 25-year-old woman who just received her master's degree, I'm respectfully asking that my waiver be granted so that I continue to grow as a professional and specifically serving our San Jose community. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope that answered your question, council member.
The question is that we have a revolving door policy created for a purpose, and my colleagues have written a letter recently or a memo justifying why people should be able to go quickly from the city to the nonprofits because they cannot hire people at the right price and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't see the same kind of a justification for going to a for-profit place. And I think your distinction that you worked on the homelessness policy over here, you will be working on different project over there. I don't think things are that clear-cut or firewalled, whether they are in this city or in any other. So the optics of it does not look good from the city standpoint and from that. Considering that, if we want to make an exception, we can make an exception and grant an exception. But from an optics standpoint, it is not consistent with the way the policy is written or the way we have been proposing things. So we can proceed with the exception if we want to do it, but the optics is not right, and I'm questioning the optics of it.
Okay,
Thank you for
Councilmember,
your
any other
answer.
questions? Are you finished?
Yes, I'm finished with the questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Cohen? You got
I
it.
guess it automatically turns red, so then when you push it, it goes off. Okay. And thank you, Ali. I don't have a question for you. I'm just going to make a comment, but thank you for being here. I know we have a policy. The policy is, obviously the reason why we're here is because we have a policy and it requires the council to make the exception, and that's why I think it's an appropriate process that we have. It's obviously, I do have questions about overall whether we should have policies like this, because we tend to grant this. We do want to give up employees in our city an opportunity to grow professionally and move on in their careers. So I don't think it's fair of us to say that it might not benefit us as a city, but there's also a question of, well, how does it benefit the employee, and is there a detriment to the city if we actually allow the employee to move on? In this case, there's a very, very short-term employee in my office, and so I don't have any concerns about conflict or any of the work that she did before being in any way, having too much influence because of her relationship she built in the city, because it was such a short-time employee here at the city. And she's been away working on other things for a while, and now is asking for the opportunity to get involved in some things that do involve the city, and is asking for this waiver. So I'll make a motion to approve the waiver.
Second.
Sorry, I missed the seconder. Councilmember Ortiz. Okay, great. Any other questions, comments? I will say, I think, Ali, your short time at the city I wasn't aware of how long you were on the 18th floor. I think given that you're only here for a few months, that definitely influences how I feel about waiving this to go work at a private lobbying firm. So I appreciate that point. Unless there are any other comments, I think we can go to a vote.
Mayor, may I just ask that Councilmember Cohen, you incorporate the criteria in the memo that went to rules from our office, and maybe have that seconded so that the findings are there? You've articulated them essentially,
Oh, okay.
but if you would include that also.
Yeah, I'm moving staff recommendation, which I assume includes the memo from staff.
Thank you.
But if I need to explicitly move the staff memo as part of that, then I will do so.
Thank you.
I'll assume that's okay with the seconder.
Okay, thank you. Assume that's okay with the seconder? We're good? Okay. All right, let's vote. Okay, that passed unanimously. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Let's go on to land use consent. And I recall from earlier in the meeting, I think there was one item, was it Councilmember Dwan, you wanted to pull item 10 point, did you want to pull one of these items? Or
No, I just want to make sure that my memo was included in the consent.
I will have to check the agenda. I don't know, Tony, if you can confirm.
10.1D.
This was 10.1B?
D. D is in David.
D is in dog, okay.
It's okay, I'm going to pull something.
It's posted.
It is posted? Okay.
And I'm going to pull 10.1B for comment.
And I'm sorry, 10.1B. B. Okay, we've got B as in boy, D as in dog. Okay. So why don't we take those two items first then, and we'll go in alphabetical order. So Councilor Cohen, and this is to vote on them separately as well? Or
Just for,
you
I just
wanna
want to comment.
You just want to comment?
Yeah, I'm just going to
Great.
comment.
Okay, go ahead and comment on 10.1B.
And I just wanted to do so to recognize a leader in our district for whom we would be taking action to rename the street. We're renaming a very small, kind of more like a driveway than a street, Dace Way, after Bishop Oscar Dace, who was the lead pastor at Bible Way Christian Center in District 4, right along Oakland Road. He was a humanitarian. He worked hard for his church, his congregation, and for residents of the district and city. Bible Way, under his leadership, established numerous ministries to help meet the needs of underprivileged, foster healthy family relationships, and address challenging issues facing today's youth. He was also a proponent of social justice and promoted solidarity in the San Jose community and beyond. With the challenging political climate and inhumane racial discrimination, he became a civil rights activist, bringing a spirit of hope to hurting communities. He was a recipient of many awards and commendations, including the Gene Young Community Service Award, Clergy of the Year, the MLK Leadership Award, and the NAACP Legacy Award. So it is fitting that we name that street that kind of circles Bible Way Christian Center in that part of San Jose, Dace Way, and I'm proud that we are taking this action today.
Great. Thanks, Councilmember Greet. I think it's a beautiful tribute. Councilmember Dwan, since your memo is attached, I don't know if you wanted to comment on it and then maybe move land use consent as a whole? Okay.
I do. I just want to make sure that we support the land use consent on item 10.1D with the real estate located on 1669 Monterey Road. Support the newly proposed color scheme of white and gray versus the, if you look at the memo, the yellow and orange and black and white in there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your memo. If you would like, you may move consent, the land use consent calendar as a whole.
Yeah, well, I'll motion to accept the consent item with the motion for the memo attached.
And all land use consent items?
Yes.
Together? Second. Great, thank you. Let's go to public comment.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman. I'll pass on this item. Sorry about that.
Gail?
Hi, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm probably going to be shooting myself in the foot, but what else is new? I just want to say that the city housing department is losing a really good staff member today. And the reason they are is because the city of Sunnyvale has taken him.
Gail, is this for one of the items on land? Gail, is this an item? Is this regarding one of the items on land use consent, or is this an open forum?
Pardon me?
Or is this an open forum comment?
I'm sorry. Open forum. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it sounds to me like an open forum, so we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Back to council.
Thanks, Tony. Let's vote. Okay, great. That also passed unanimously. Thank you. So we are on to open forum, which is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on city matters that were not on today's agenda. Tony, we'll go back to you.
Okay, I have Renee Baez, Jack Burton, and Winston. Please come on down. First person on the microphone, just go ahead and speak. Again, that's Renee, Winston, and Jack Burton.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? I know my time does not begin until I get to the podium. My team is going to rise. They represent. So my team represents young people from all over the city of San Jose who serve 10 districts. That's all of your districts, to make sure that young people had self-care, that they were safe. However, their voices are not heard, and we are putting down platforms so that their voices can be heard, so that you can hear their voices, so you can have a conversation with them. Unfortunately, City Council is not responding to many of their communication. A few of you have. We expect to have a conversation with the mayor. He's been very good to come out to some of our events, but even conversations to have action and equity for voices through your city departments who are not providing that is critical. As we have kids go back to school and they're dealing with depression and violence and other issues of that nature, The party program expects equity for these voices to be included in the conversations, and they're not, through your city departments, who some of them have labels of equity and diversity inclusion. They're not. In addition to that, City of San Jose has declared a Stop the Violence Day because of the murder of an African-American young male 20 years ago. And we are going to work with you, if you return our emails and our phone calls, to make sure that that day has equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Talking about the homelessness and the lady out back in the police parking lot, the City Hall. City workers came in there today and took everything she owned and threw it away on her. They took her phone. One of the homeless coalition workers had to get her phone back for her that they took. They didn't even give me time to speak to you, Mayor, to see if we could put that on hold, to see if we could work something out with her to get her moved out of there. That's all we wanted to let the mayor know, that we were trying to get her out of there, but they didn't give us a chance to do it. And it was one of the officers that were involved pulled the crate that she had her foot on, and it's wrapped in an H-band. So I got a video on the phone. You can see it on the police scan, on the monitors too, that they have. Her foot's wrapped right there in the H-band. She had it up on a crate. They pulled the crates from underneath her foot and made her hurt even worse than what she already was. Her name is Rose, and all she does is feed the homeless people. There's no harm in what she does. I think the city should look into how the city employees treat the homeless people.
Blair, followed by Gail. Actually, we'll go to Gordon and then Blair.
I kind of hear the same problem with him. I don't understand what it is that you're doing. I ran into an issue, and I went through a lot of this my own self through the last year. You know, the pandemic came, and I got hurt very badly through this. The city that I respect and loved turned on me, just like they did that lady today. And I don't believe this is right. They took her food and ate it in front of her and stepped on it, like they did me. It's one thing, it's a terrible thing to be homeless. You know, I went to a place in an encampment to try to help somebody that was there. Even though I was homeless, I lived somewhere else. I was a little smarter when it came to me. I went to a business and I made myself security guard there. So it all worked very well for me at first. You know, I didn't have a place to live, but nobody bothered me. And then I mean, you will not believe the way the city employees treated us. I mean, it's despicable. I'm not proud of them. I mean, and just watch what they did the same thing. That lady is like 80. I took her food away and ate it in front of her and then put the lady that came and gave me the fresh vegetables, the apples and the potatoes and stuff like that, they put it in the cab of the truck, took it home. And ate it instead of her eating it. This is not right. You guys did the same thing to me at the encampment where they stranded me there. They stole so much I couldn't leave. There was nowhere to go. I got finally, there was nowhere to go. I didn't want to stay there and then be treated like that.
Thank you. Blair, followed by Gail.
Hi, Blair Beekman. You've had two people who've spoken about the issue outside of City Hall today. I'm number 3. You guys gave a 24-hour notice to an old woman who has a bunch of stuff and who just needed a bit more time to work out where to go to. And you guys did not allow that. I'm just shocked. I'm really, really shocked. I mean, you guys, like, you upheld your good morals and principles, right? And you feel like your ego is very well satisfied and satiated now, correct? You've upheld some sort of form of justice. What justice did you uphold? There were two encampments along the little street there on Fifth Avenue. One was a tent, a guy in a tent who can move pretty easily. The older woman had serious issues, and she was working on them with Home First. They were talking. They were in dialogue. Why didn't you allow that? Why didn't you allow a 3-day process? Why couldn't you be flexible? That's the key here. Why couldn't you be flexible? Really learn to practice those skills. 72 hours notification should be standard. Standard. There was not that much trouble being caused here. Man, you guys, please work on this. With my remaining time, I wanted to compliment yourselves that with the body camera issue, you guys have worked really hard for it to be how it could be possibly a more open process for victims of crime to receive their body camera footage in court trials. How is that process going? Is it becoming more accessible to victims of crime, body camera footage? If I call and write to you guys, can you give me some information on that? In living in San Diego, they're interested in that kind of thing. They don't quite work that way. They would like to know. And so let's practice good things, guys. Please. Flexibility. Thank you.
Gail, followed by Jordan. Gail?
Okay. Anyway, sorry that I jumped the gun, but anyway, the city of Sunnyvale with wonderful Mayor Larry has had their own unhoused department now and hired this wonderful person away from San Jose, and he is heading it up in Sunnyvale. As a few of you know, I have been advocating to take everything that's unhoused out of housing and have their own department. The unhoused need their own department. It doesn't have to be a big staff. I would love to have Omar Passions run it. And I think it's very important where then the unhoused will feel comfortable enough maybe going in and making appointments with Omar Passions. And please think about this. It's very important because some of the issues that are impacting the unhoused are being overlooked and not being handled. So I'm not here to criticize, but if Sunnyvale can do it, why can't San Jose? It's a really great loss to San Jose to having this gentleman leave, but it's Sunnyvale's gain. And I'm really jealous that the unhoused will have their own department. So please think about it, somebody up there, and let's go for it. We don't need a big staff, but there are a lot of people that I'm sure will support you. Thank you so much.
Jordan, followed by Francesca.
Hi, Jordan Moldau, District 3. I didn't have opinions on this particular lobbying exemption, but I take issue with the logic behind the exemption grant, and I hope that future requests might be handled more logically. The revolving door policy doesn't stop professional development, like was stated. It isn't like some blanket non-compete. You can still perform plenty of jobs that benefit the city or others. You just can't lobby San Jose's government. The waiver was granted based on an example of clients the employee is currently lobbying for, but my understanding, which might be incorrect, is that the employee can now lobby for any possible client, not just the ones in the memorandum. I don't think short employment times and different subject areas is a sufficiently strong reason to grant an exemption. You can still create strong, useful relationships in a short amount of time that can be potentially unfairly leveraged in the new private lobbying role. A benefit of the revolving door policy is so that people won't get jobs in City Hall and then turn around and utilize that for private benefit. Perhaps the revolving door policy should be amended with a specific checklist for future exemptions so that we can ensure the full spirit of the policy. I also want to talk briefly about Zoom. I think it might be a good time to consider whether more open technology can be used for City Hall meetings. Zoom has a pretty expansive policy in terms of what data they can collect from people, and everything is owned privately by them. It's a private protocol. And there's been some news in the past few days about them expanding their policy even more so that they can create AI programs based off of anything that's recorded in these meetings. So I would potentially consider looking into open alternatives. Thank you.
Francesca online, followed by Surinder in person.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be able to have a voice being heard. And I've been an advocate for the unhoused, working at a nonprofit in San Jose as well. So I come with lots of experience dealing with the unhoused. And I concur with what Gordon said. I believe that was a speaker that it was in person. I know him personally. And Gail. We did receive a big loss having break the housing department. And do need our own department for the unhoused, where people are focused just on their issues. It's too big a breath for the housing department. You'd be spreading yourselves too thin. That's what's been going on. So, like Gail said, Lucky Sunny got Greg. How disappointing for San Jose. But there are great people out there. I concur for more passings would be great at this. And so I would like the city council and the mayor to truly consider a department just for the unhoused. And maybe you should take a poll because they've been neglected long enough. We're not able to get up and running fast enough. And we all feel the pain of our unhoused. Thank you for this.
Surinder.
Hi, City Council. I'm running the San Jose Gurdwara, which brings you all a lot of revenue in food, and run a peaceful organization that serves about 80,000 meals a week. And yet I'm labeled unfit to be a mother. Haven't seen my son in over 15 months. I have 2 restraining orders against me. And I would like the city of San Jose to do something about it. I would like my son back. Thank you.
Back to the council.
Okay, thank you, Tony. With that, we are adjourned. Have a good afternoon, everyone.